Hey guys, it's Larfen. Welcome to a new episode of my replay analysis series. And so we're going to be looking at Luminusian's Extraordinary Replay. This was made for the opener challenge last month that I actually made the opener for. So it's a little Sambo Madman thing with the ski at the end there. So we're going to take a look at this. Alright. So, to start off, we have the opener that I made, and it's so good. Just kidding. So I think he starts editing at around here, if I remember correctly. So he uses the spin that I started up. And then one thing I didn't like about this opener is the way that he extends his right knee right here. It's very abrupt, and I guess it's just like not how I imagined the opener, but I would prefer for him to keep that knee bent a little bit, because suddenly extending it like that is a really jarring motion, and it sort of like stops his momentum. You can see there, like he just sort of plants it there, and then it's sort of like, it looks gross to me. But anyway, he pops himself up there, then gives him a little tap on the torso, and that's fine. Some people don't like you to hit Uke unless it's like a dismembering or manipulating hit. And I used to be kind of like that in a way, but I don't mind just little taps like that. I think they're cute. But then drops down and goes in for a punch. And normally I wouldn't really like people changing their momentum like that. So you can see he's turning left, and then he stops with his leg plant, and then goes right with that punch. But I think he made it flow very well. He sort of transferred his momentum smoothly, and it really worked in his favor, I think. So that's a really good punch. Then after the punch, he grabs, and then does this hook kick. The hook kick I like less, because if you see it, like, it's not a very good angle. And, I mean, a bad angle is normally bad because you can't really get too many dismemberments out of it. He got 2, which is good enough for me. But the reason the angle is bad in this is that you can see his shin actually gets that first dismemberment on the hip, and you definitely don't want that. You don't want your shin to be breaking anything. And then his foot comes around and breaks the other glute. I think better aim would have been if he had somehow contracted his knee a little bit earlier. I know one way you can do this is relaxing your hip. You'll see Puzga doing this a lot. Relaxing your hip so you can contract your knee early, so you can really get your foot inside those meaty joint heavy regions, like the glutes and all that. So that second kick could have been better. And then he gives a little nice throw to the torso. That's pretty good. He does that quite well. And then he falls into probably my favorite part of the replay. He situates himself really well into this pose. A lot of people, they have a lot of trouble actually setting up these jumps smoothly. But I think Luminusian did a really good job at smoothly getting into a crouching position so he can start this jump here. And it's a very pretty jump. He's got a nice spin going. And then one thing I don't like, and I do like the follow-up, minus the part where he grabs Uke's head. Because, I mean, when you throw Uke and then kick him, you should be able to dismember him without grabbing him every time, because you have complete control over everything in that situation. You have control where you threw Uke, and you have control over where you jumped. So I don't think grab should be used in this situation. But I mean, he does use the grab later to his merit, because he grabs the head and then throws it down at that piece right there for a nice little dismemberment, skeet dismemberment, which is good. And let me just get through this real quick again. And then, yeah, he falls into this, gets a little pose right there on his tippy toes. I like that. I like tippy toe poses, they're cute. So overall, this is a pretty decent Madman. I didn't really like that knee extension in the opener, and that second kick, and that grab of the head after his jump throw. But other than that, this is a pretty nice looking replay. Definitely really good. Our next replay here is going to be Overload by Cheeseburger. This is a really nice, quick Madman. I really like this replay. It's really short, but I think it's really nice. So we're going to get into it. So he starts off with a pretty simple opener. Like, it's a double knee breaker with both of his legs. And, I mean, it's a pretty scrubby opener. I don't think anyone will argue that. Like, that's for scrubs. But I think it's a really good opener for what he does in this case, because it's just a quick launch, gets the 2 dismemberments, and then Yuke's in a nice aerial position for him to come in and do what he does next. So I think the opener worked very well for him in this case, even though it's a really simple and easy to do opener and not that impressive technically. I think it does its purpose very well. So after the opener, he drops into this little pose, definitely good for starting up some momentum, and then brings his arm up and grabs Yuke's hand, just barely, which I think is real nice. Just to barely grab Yuke's hand like that, like, get back here. And you use a lot of momentum pulling yourself in with that. So then he comes in with his right leg and gets a nice, actually only single dismemberment with his kick there, which is actually pretty impressive given the amount of destruction that comes later in this replay. You'd think that his first hit would be a pretty decently sized boom, but no, it just gets the right peck. But then he quickly follows it up with his left hand, getting a real nice punch right in the crotch block area. So, and you can see also that he gets the dismemberment on the chest area too, just because of the compression that he gets from hitting the crotch block area, which is a pretty cool kind of dismemberment to get. So you can see how he really uses his momentum from the right leg kick to the left hand punch, and like he sort of squeezes Yuke with him. So he uses his right leg is doing work even after it does the dismemberment, which is a good thing to do in these fast-paced dismemberment replays that he's doing. So then he grabs the torso piece and then brings his left leg around for a knee dismemberment that gets both the head and the other pec piece. And normally this would be a pretty messy and undesirable hit, but in this case, where it's a really fast and really quick dismemberment, it just flows in really well, and it's definitely feasible to sacrifice cleanliness for destruction in this case. And then he easily follows that up with a right hook kick to get the last 2 dismemberments on the core. Then gives a little cute crotch block throw at the end there. And then he falls into a pose because, I mean, you don't want to do anything flashy after this because you've already done the flashy thing. So you just want to get into a pose after this kind of replay. And so, and it's really quick, but he just uses all of his body parts very well in this replay. And he's really showing that he's a very technical and efficient player with this replay, and I really like this replay. I can't think of much that I dislike about it. So I'm going to say keep doing what you're doing, Cheeseburger, because this is pretty sweet. So our next replay is going to be Too Cool by Killin97. This guy I feel like I've seen before a while ago, and he just sent me a replay, but I feel like he hasn't been around for a while. But let's check this replay out. So he starts off with this kind of opener, you know, the one knee bent thing where you kick off the ground, you know, the one that like everyone does at some point. So, I mean, it's not a very original opener, and I'll take some points off for that. And also, I don't think he uses it to its fullest effect, because he sort of kicks off, but then he uses it for a step rather than a rotation. And I think this kind of opener is much stronger for its rotational type sort of thing than for a push forward like he's using here. And I also don't like his little floppy wrist thing right there. The extended elbow in the opener into the floppy wrist there. I think he definitely should have held his wrist or relaxed his elbow or something, because just his little left wrist flailing at the end of there isn't very pretty, I don't think. So then, after that kickoff, he comes forward and gets this front kick on the torso. And this is a pretty simple kick. It's definitely nothing that you haven't seen before. It's pretty standard, I'd say. I think most people are capable of doing a decent front kick like this. It's right rotating chest, contracted hip, extended knee. Boom, you got a kick. I mean, it's pretty simple. Not much you need to be able to pull this kind of thing off. And then he gets a nice follow up with the left leg. I mean, it's a bit conventional again, but to be fair, I don't think there's much else he could have done to follow up that kick in this situation. Like, there's no other thing that would have been reasonable and flowing enough to go into after that first hit. So, I mean, he did what he could. So, after this, he grabs this foot here, and this is definitely my favorite part of the replay, because he gets this really nice fast punch, boom, to this part of the body, and that's really nice and strong, and that's definitely really good. And you can just see a little bit of style behind it too, like he sort of gets his fist in there, then brings it back. It's like a slap. I like the style that he puts behind that last punch. It's really nice. And then going into the pose, that sudden contracting elbow thing, I'm not a fan of. I mean, it's a cool pose once he gets into it, but you kind of want your poses to happen naturally and not look like you're really forcing yourself into it, because that's definitely a common error that a lot of people can make, that like, oh, I'll just make sure that I get in this really cool pose, but then you look like an idiot trying to get to the really cool pose. So I would have preferred for him to just sort of relax his elbows and let him stand by his side, because his lower body is definitely moving smoothly. It's just his arms that are the problem in this case. So overall, this is a pretty simple replay. I wouldn't be saying praises about it, but I mean, it definitely shows that he knows what he's doing. He just needs to sort of put a little bit more of his own style and personal flair on it, because this is something that a lot of people have seen before, I think. So our last replay for this episode is going to be Necrophilia by D-Skigs. This is another replay from the opener challenge that I created the opener for. So it's going to be Sambo, it's going to be a Madman, and it's going to be pretty good. So let's check it out. So we start off with my opener again. And this one, I definitely prefer the follow-up for over the previous one I talked about. You can see that he keeps the knee bent, and he keeps the flow of the opener going. And I do really like this little foot grab that he does here. It's a technique that I always thought is pretty nice looking. And it's pretty hard to make look good, so I really like that he put that little flair in there. So then after the foot grab, he uses his arm to continue the spin, and then sets into this little pose, which, as we all know, is very good for setting up any kind of replay ever. So he goes in and does sort of a questionable punch. I mean, it's kind of cool. I guess, but I don't really see the point in just letting your wrist fall off there. Like, maybe it's just too deep for me, and maybe I just don't get it, but I don't see any reason to sort of let your hand fall off there with that punch. So then he does follow it up very nicely. He very gracefully sort of does a little flip there, and then falls into another pose closer to him, and then gets a nice double knee kick in there. And double knees are always impressive to see. Like, there's no such thing as a bad double knee, I don't think. They're just always nice. And also, more impressively, at the exact same time, he's getting a punch up to the pecs. And double knees are so hard to do by themselves. So I think it's really impressive that he found it in him to get another simultaneous hit at the same time. I mean, he does do that little grab rip on the pec there, which I see you. And you don't want to do grab rips too much. There are times when they're okay, but I wouldn't say this is one of those times. Oh wait, no, he doesn't even grab rip it, my bad. But, so that actually is a good grab, my bad. So he does use that grab to just sort of pull him in a little bit. And then does this cute little, he breaks it off with his stub, which is nice. I do like using the stub after you've broken off something. So I do like that, but I think the thing has to be broken off for a reason in the first place. So then he follows that up with a little hook with his left leg very quickly. So I'm really liking the speed of his hits that he's doing there. Also, that's his left leg. I do like the speed of the hits that he's getting here. And then he spins around and just sort of lands like that. So in this replay, I feel like it's almost unfinished. Oh, I missed a wrist DM in there too. Where did that happen? So he does that. Then the arm just sort of falls on the ground and breaks. So I don't even know if he did that on purpose or not, but it's nice. But then he falls into a pose after that. And this replay, I feel like he could have definitely gotten more out of it. I don't know if he could have kept the fast flow that he was doing, but I really would have liked him to do something after this flurry of hits, because it feels like he hasn't done enough dismemberments to satisfy me. Like, he could get a little bit more torso dismemberments. I'd like to see a decap. I always like to see decaps. So, I mean, this is a very well-crafted replay, but I feel like the actual dismemberment that he does, and some of the choice that he makes to end it there is questionable.